If we are talking about the greatest warlords of all time, two names always rise to the surface: Julius Caesar and Genghis Khan. At first glance, they don't belong in the same story. Caesar believed the world could be measured, organized, and ruled through systems. Genghis Khan feels like his opposite, a force that doesn't build permanence, a man who turns motion itself into a weapon. One conquers through order, the other conquers through chaos. So what happens when these two ways of war collide? Does raw momentum and relentless pressure crush everything in its path? Or does discipline, structure, and control ultimately prevail? Because history suggests the answer isn't as obvious as it sounds. Julius Caesar did not conquer by accident. When he marched, he carried Rome with him. Not symbolically, but physically. Roads were extended, supply systems followed. Camps rose every night with such consistency that Roman soldiers could build them in near darkness. To Caesar, war was not something you reacted to. It was something you engineered. His genius was control. He knew where his men were. He knew how long grain would last. He knew how far a legion could march before fatigue became weakness. And more importantly, his soldiers trusted that knowledge. They trusted that if they followed the system would protect them. Caesar rewarded discipline, loyalty, and predictability. In return, his legions became extensions of his will. Steady, relentless, terrifying in their cohesion. This is how he broke Gaul, not through speed, through pressure. Village by village, tribe by tribe. Every rebellion met with overwhelming response. Every victory documented, analyzed, and repeated. Caesar didn't just win battles, he learned from them in real time. His war commentaries weren't vanity, they were field manuals written during the campaign. But that brilliance came with an assumption that the enemy would stay somewhere. Genghis Khan never stayed anywhere long enough to be measured. Where Caesar imposed structure, Genghis erased it. His army didn't need roads, it didn't need depots, it didn't even need a fixed objective in the way Roman campaigns did. Mongol warfare wasn't about holding ground, it was about controlling movement. Every rider was both soldier and scout. Every unit could fragment and reassemble without orders. Every retreat could be real or a lie. Genghis did not command through constant instruction. He built a culture where initiative mattered more than obedience. His officers were promoted for results, not lineage. Failure was punished brutally, but success, no matter who achieved it, was rewarded. This created an army that thought for itself. Mongol soldiers didn't wait for commands to react. They reacted because they understood intent. That difference is everything. Where Roman discipline produced consistency, Mongol discipline produced adaptability. And that adaptability was lethal. If these two men ever met on campaign, the first phase would look deceptively familiar. Caesar would advance cautiously, securing territory as he went, expecting resistance to form somewhere ahead. His scouts would report movement but no massed enemy. The legions would build camps anyway because Rome never assumed safety. It manufactured it. And for a while it would work, until it didn't. Because Genghis would not give Caesar what he needed most, a problem he could define. There would be no single army to engage, no city to besiege, no decisive clash where Roman discipline could compress chaos into submission. Instead, the campaign would stretch. Time would become the weapon. Roman patrols would encounter resistance that refused to finish fights. Cavalry would chase enemies that dissolved into distance. Infantry would march toward contact that evaporated just before engagement. And slowly, the Roman strengths would start to invert. Discipline would become rigidity. Planning would become delay. Control would become exposure. This is where the men themselves matter. Caesar thrived on proximity. He spoke to his soldiers. He inspired loyalty by being present, by sharing danger, by knowing names, by rewarding courage publicly. His authority was visible, tangible. But visibility is a liability against an enemy that doesn't need to be seen. Genghis Khan commanded differently. He rarely needed to appear at the front. His presence was structural, not personal. Orders traveled through intent, not constant reinforcement. His army didn't need reassurance. It needed opportunity. And opportunity is exactly what prolonged uncertainty creates. As supplies stretched and morale shifted from confidence to irritation, Caesar would be forced to react rather than dictate. Each adaptation would come after damage, not before it. Every attempt to force engagement would be anticipated, avoided, or turned against him. Not because Caesar was inferior, but because this war wouldn't reward what made him great. At some point, the truth would become unavoidable. This battlefield does not belong to Rome. Caesar's genius depends on a world that can be shaped, stabilized, and compelled into submission. Genghis Khan thrived in worlds already broken. Worlds where movement mattered more than order, and psychology mattered more than terrain. This isn't about brutality versus civilization. It's about systems under stress. And in prolonged instability, the system that bends survives. The system that insists on control fractures. At this point, the war isn't about genius anymore, it's about systems. Caesar wins wars by forcing order onto chaos. Genghis wins by turning chaos into the weapon. In a war without a final battle, without stable fronts, without rules that hold, Roman precision doesn't collapse all at once. It can't force an ending. And in a war without an ending, the advantage belongs to the man who never needed one. This isn't Caesar failing, it's the world refusing to behave. So the real question is this: could Caesar have adapted fast enough to survive a war that never stood still? You've just looped through time. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.